You're listening to the Show We Go Baseball podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 54 of To the Show We Go. We have Jamie Gatlin with myself, Andrew Parker, today. We have one of the newest members of the Tampa Bay Rays organization. For people that may not know him, he was with the Philadelphia Phillies organization before. He's had a couple years off now. We'll get into that in a little bit, but it is the Blake Brown episode. Now, Blake, we were talking a little off air. I know your offseason's probably been a little different than some other guys that had just got done playing a few months ago, but I get, how has it been just this winter for you? Like, is it at the final stages here of ramping back up to for 2024?
Yeah. So this offseason I still was going to a physical therapist back home in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. But for the most part, yeah, I had normal strength training, normal mobility stuff. The only thing that wasn't really going on was throwing because the rehab process so far has led to a couple complications. But for the outlook as of now, it looks like I'll be on track to out of spring training, be good to go. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. And it's an off season of change for you with obviously the Rule 5, which we'll get into in a bit, but how hard has it been for you to adjust to getting to know a new system, getting to know a new complex, just, I guess, and new teammates everywhere? Like, I guess, what kind of challenges do you see like coming up for you with this whole process?
You know, I mean, minor league baseball is minor league baseball. So anywhere you go, it's going to be very, very similar. I mean, yeah, it's a business, but most of those businesses run it the same way to a certain extent. And the Rays are no different. It hasn't been too much of a big adjustment from the Phillies when it comes to like getting around and whatnot. Like, yeah, the Phillies knew, but they've done a good job pointing me in the right direction. Like, hey, you need to be here. This is where you're at. And the setup's pretty easy to maneuver around. So that's been really nice.
And it's also a good thing too, that you'll be in the same state as well. It's not like, I know some guys that, especially in the Rule 5, because you don't really get to choose where you're going. And it's just like, a lot of the guys are like, okay, I'm used to being down in Florida around this time. Now they got to go over to Arizona. It's just a little different vibes. So at least you'll still be in the same state. And, honestly, the same vibes, because I know that Arizona is a heck of a lot different than the Florida League for spring training. So I'm sure that's going to be a little helpful, I guess, as you're getting acquainted. But I did want to talk about the Rule 5. So minor league Rule 5 rolls around. You get selected by the Rays. So going into that for you, what was it like, your experience? Like, was it one of those things where you had teams contacting your agent because they knew you were available, or like, I guess, what was the process like?
So my agent had mentioned about 2 weeks prior that there were a couple teams inquiring about me, just where I was health-wise, what the look was going to be for coming up in spring training when I was throwing bullpens, things along those lines. But in my head, the way that he portrayed it was, okay, these teams are interested in when I get healthy, maybe they're going to trade for me in spring training. You know, I haven't pitched since 2021. So Rule 5 really wasn't on my mind. Like, I know guys get Rule 5 after not pitching for a while. But I wasn't considered a high ranking prospect in the Phillies organization, at least not among different outlets, news outlets. So it didn't really cross my mind. And then I was coming home from physical therapy, and I got a call from my agent. And, you know, I mean, we talk quite often. I love him. He's a great guy. And so we're friends as well as I'm his client. And he called me, and I assumed, hey, we're just going to have a phone call. Maybe he's got something to ask me. And he said, hey, did you see what just happened? I was like, no. And then he told me, and I was like, oh, that's neat kind of thing. So then we went through the whole process of, I started meeting all the Tampa Bay Rays people. And then the Phillies called and, you know, they told me, they were like, "Oh yeah, you got Rule 5s," and that was about the end of it. But the expectation wasn't there going into the day.
And how's your conversations gone with the Rays? People from the Rays that you've been able to talk with so far?
They've been great. I so far I've loved all the people I've met, especially in the rehab department. They've been great. I talked to a couple of the pitching guys. Winston Doom is the name that comes to mind immediately, and we had a good conversation. Obviously, I haven't been able to do much with them since I haven't been throwing. But once I get that back up and going, I'm pretty excited to work with them.
Is it the Rays have a little bit of a reputation for being very advanced in the pitching side of things. It's always incredible how every single year, me and Jamie were just talking about this. It was like the Rays literally have guys that come up and you're just like, who is this guy? And then he comes out, he shoves, and then he becomes like an all-star. It's incredible what they do with the arms in the Tampa Bay system. Is that something you're excited to learn under a pitching program that does produce such great guys in the league?
Yeah, I mean, it's always new to get some insight from someone different than you've ever talked to. It's just a different perspective on whether it be your mechanics, your pitches, whatever, your run game control. It's really nice to always talk to someone else. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what they've got in store, just as an organization as a whole, because like you said, their reputation is pretty good when it comes to developing players. So I'd love to be one of those guys that they found, through a Rule 5 draft that didn't really have that much going for him because I hadn't pitched in 2 years, and then they turned me into something that could be special. That would be really cool. But whenever I start throwing, I'll figure that out, I suppose.
Jamie, I don't want to keep hogging it, so you get in there.
I said, what are some things you've learned, the last 2 years, coming back from injury? Have you kind of learned to cherish baseball a little more, just being out of action for that long?
Yeah. So coming back from my Achilles injury in spring training 2022, I started throwing bullpens February of 2023. So close to about a year ago. And I almost cried in my first bullpen. It was pretty emotional. I'd never really had a big injury like that, and never had a season-ending injury of that nature. So it was something new to have to learn to deal with. The mental side of things to start off with was pretty tough. I won't lie. You're at the field and you're watching all these guys out on the backfields doing their thing for spring training, and you're stuck. I was stuck in a boot or in a cast, so. It was tough to look at, but you learn to get through it. And the Phillies were great. Their mental performance side of things was great. Good conversations to have with them. So they had a pretty good base to help me get through it for sure.
Was there any advice you got from anyone in the Phillies that kind of stood out to you during that time?
I don't know if I'd say advice, but the Phillies rehab pitching coach, Aaron Barrett, he went through a serious injury after making it to the big leagues with the Nationals. I don't remember if it was in 2014 or 2015, but he had a serious elbow injury that took him a long time to come back from. And his big thing was always just keep going, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure you give it everything you got to get back. Because like with him, I think it was a 3-year process for him to come back to throwing, but he eventually did, and he eventually made it back to the major leagues. Granted, it wasn't for very long because he was still having issues with his elbow, but that was a story that I really liked to look up to, especially since at this point I've been in rehab for almost 2 full years. So he was very helpful in guiding me through the process.
I want to take it back a little bit. So obviously you've been 2 years off, but 2021, a really good season for you. I was actually I had read before you hopped on, a guy with Fangraphs had interviewed you, I think back in like early 22, maybe that was a little after the 21 season. And You were talking about your uptick in velocity and some other things that you kind of had some good success with in 21. Can you talk to me a little bit about your high A experience when you were pitching in Jersey, when your K per 9 was like the highest in your entire career, including college at UNC Asheville? So what were you, I guess, finding out about yourself in 2021 before the injury?
So I think, once I got to pro ball, it was very different than college. In college, and I'm not saying professional baseball, you don't want to win, but college baseball coaches, their job is on the line if their players don't perform to win baseball games. Whereas in professional baseball, your minor league coaches are sure they want to win games, but they are there to get you better, to get you to the big leagues. They want you in and out of that team as fast as possible. At least a good minor league coach does. And so going into that, I knew that most of my career from then on was going to be on my shoulders. I wasn't going to have to rely on a coach putting me in. And if I don't perform, I don't pitch for 3 weeks. The professional teams are going to keep throwing you out there and keep throwing you out there to give you opportunities to be successful. And they're going to put you in the best positions. And I think that that being put in the back end of the bullpen as a higher velocity pitcher who 3 pitches, I don't really have a changeup. I throw a slider and a curveball, but being in that position coupled with understanding how my stuff worked. I mean, fastball up, curveball down, slider when I wanted to get a swing on a righty, kind of thing. That plus maturing a little bit on the mound and understanding like you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be good enough. I think that's where a lot of the success came from going from college to professional baseball.
Now, Jamie, we talked about this a little off air, but I want you to ask that. It kind of goes in about the closing experience that we were looking at.
So I got some closing opportunities. You're a guy that loves being in that high leverage situation, having to get the final out at the, visitors ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, when you get the call, for me, whenever I get the call in the 8th inning saying, hey, we're up by 1 run, we're up by 2 runs, you've got the 9th inning, come close it out. I'm an adrenaline junkie as is, but that knowing that like it's make or break is something that I really, really, really enjoy. In terms of baseball, other parts of my life, maybe I'm not a big pressure guy, but in baseball, it's always been something that's taken my performance to the next level. When I was a little kid, anytime I was really mad and angry on the mound, I'd always pitch better. I never knew why. I was like, oh, I just pitch better because I'm mad. Now that I'm older, I understand what that anger really was. And it was just adrenaline pumping through. And I've learned to control it at this point and really use it when I'm pitching. So that's one of the things about being in the back end of the bullpen that I've really enjoyed for sure.
What's your go-to walk-up song?
To be completely honest with you, I haven't really had a walk-up song that's been set through my entire career, but I think Cinderella Man by Eminem is probably my choice if I had to pick one for the rest of my life, for a couple reasons. But I mean, other than being a good song, but it relates a little bit to my past life and growing up and some of the stuff that I went through. So it's definitely up there.
As solid as they come for a walk-up song. But I'm going to be honest with you. I was looking at the stats, and you had closed more games in 2021 than you did your entire college career combined. And I always had this joke too, because I was, in a locker room this past year in AAA, and it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like the closers, whenever you would see like the guys that were closing games, like they were just like a tick more like serious. They were a little more like psychopath in a good way. Mm-hmm. So what I guess in college compared to once you turn pro, it's like what changed for you to want to like be in that situation?
Nothing. I always wanted to be in that situation. If we're being completely honest, I've always wanted to be that 1 to 2 inning guy that comes out and like I said, gets put in a high leverage situation. But for college baseball, where I played college ball at, it was kind of one of those things where I was just one of the better arms that we had. So to put you on the mound and we're going to hope you go 6-7 innings and give us a chance to win every Saturday or Friday or whatever day it was I pitched on. I don't actually remember now, but that was where that was. I talked to my coach a couple of times about being a back end guy, but we had a guy that was in that position. Granted, he wasn't a high octane arm, but he did throw a lot of strikes. And in the Big South Conference, that's how you get outs. It's not the big velo. It's not the big breaker. It's throwing the ball in the zone 3 times in 1 AB. And you're going to be successful. So
I do want to bring it back to your draft year. So your draft year. I know you weren't drafted, but it was probably because it was the weirdest draft in our lifetime, just because it was only 5 rounds and it was just chaos after that because every single guy was pretty much an undrafted free agent that year due to COVID. But what was I was reading a little bit on the Fangraphs interview, but what was that like for you, I guess, with going through a 5-round draft and just, I guess, a little more uncertainty? Because I feel like so many guys that would have been drafted in a normal year, I don't know if they had switched it from 40 rounds yet or if it was still 20.
No, that was the first year that it wasn't 40.
Okay. Yeah. So the year before was 40 rounds. So it's like a lot of the guys that were undrafted free agents like yourself probably would have been picked. So I guess going into the 2020 draft, like what was that experience like for you, like during the COVID times?
Very nerve-wracking. I knew going in, obviously it was a 5-round draft, and I knew that there was one stat in particular that would keep me out of the draft if it were to happen. And it was my walks. I think my senior year in the 19 innings I threw, I struck out 26, but I walked 18 guys in 19 innings as a starter. So I knew that was going to be the big deal breaker. And I went into it with confidence. I'd talked to a couple teams prior to the draft. A couple teams had talked to my agent saying, hey, would he take this amount of money? We'll guarantee we slot him in the 4th or the 5th round. And with them putting a cap on the signing bonuses for non-drafted free agents that year, it's hard to agree to something like that going into the draft, knowing that the amount of money they're offering is not enough to sway you from the choice post-draft, right? I mean, for some guys, you got the choice of 5 teams. For other guys, you got the choice of 25 teams after the draft. And that really is something that you can use to your advantage. And I mean, after the 5th round, after my name wasn't called, I was a little upset. I won't lie to you. I had to go take a nice short drive to cool off a little bit, just to get the emotions under control. But after that, and after I came back, me and my agent talked on the phone about it, and we came up with a game plan going into the free agent signing period, which I think was 3 days later. It was Monday, and the draft ended on Friday. And on Monday morning at 9 a.m., one of the guys from the Red Sox called, and that was the start. I was like, oh, I got a phone call. And then while I'm on the phone with him, it was, I had 6 or 7 or 8 other people calling me at the same time, trying to set up Zoom calls. And I had to just shoot them all text saying, hey, just call my agent, set the stuff up. He'll send me the information. So it was a little hectic, but getting to choose was, I think, a huge bonus. Going with the Phillies, there was a couple people that I talked to about the Phillies, knowing the type of organization they were and the direction they were moving. Like there were a handful of organizations that probably suited me a little better in terms of how they did things, such as the Rays or the Brewers or the Yankees or the Dodgers. They're very, very new school, very progressive baseball organizations. But I knew with the Phillies that I'd be able to move a little faster. So I decided, hey, let's take a chance on that. And, I enjoyed my time with the organization for sure.
You did bring up something I wanted to ask about as well. Your stat line for 2021 when you were in high A is one of the more interesting lines I've seen. I know ERA is not like a tall, like just the stat that everybody thinks it used to be type thing. I know a lot of people hate ERA. They hate batting average, hate all that stuff now, whatever. I still like it. But I also incorporate other stuff too. But man, your stat line in 2021, the ERA was just above 3. Your K per 9 was the highest it's been in your entire career. your batting average against was 155. It's just your walk rate was so high. So it's like, I guess it's interesting to me because you do such a good job at limiting contact and keeping the runs off the board. So I guess with that in mind, and then you obviously got a taste at Double-A before you were done pitching. So it's like, I guess, like, take me through like some things that, once you do get the all clear for 2024, whenever that is, what kind of stuff are you looking to change about your game?
Obviously, limiting the walks would be an easy out to that question. However, so when I was coming back from Achilles surgery, me and one of the guys with the Phillies, I was dead set on, I'm going to figure out how to throw the ball in the zone at least at about a 45-50% clip. Like if I can get in zone rate at about 45-50%, I think I'll be a really, really successful pitcher. So I spent every day throwing just how close can I hit him in the chest? How close can I hit him in the chest? And that's something I'd never done. I'd never really focused on that because I used to think that was a little eyewash. Like, oh yeah, like you're playing catch. It doesn't transfer. And then sure enough, when I started to focus on that in catch play, my bullpens, when I came back, were 100 times better than they had ever been in my life. It was like before the injury, when I'm throwing a bullpen, if I feel that I'm going to miss the zone, like I knew it was no question about it. I was going to miss the zone. And then once I came back, whenever I was like, oh crap, that's a bad pitch. It would still be a competitive pitch. It might not be in the strike zone, but it was competitive enough to where in certain counts, it may induce a swing of some kind. So that, I think that's just going to be the biggest focus. Whenever I get the all go to throw and get ready to come back and pitch, it's just going to be focusing on the simple things, keeping it as simple as I can. And just, like I said, just focusing on my catch partner's chest and really working on getting that release point dialed in and letting everything else take care of itself.
If a Rays fan was to ask you, what type of pitcher they're getting, how would you describe that? So what else came up to you?
So I'd probably tell them that off the field, I'm a normal person, and on the field, I'm a little crazy, which like we talked about earlier, every back end guy they have that little bit of psychopath to them. And I got that nod a couple times. And in the last few years in professional baseball that I might've been a little crazy on the mound. I mean, especially after big closes and big games, or not even big games, because we didn't go anywhere in 21 with the Blue Claws, but there were definitely big situations where coming out of the bullpen, and there's probably a couple of videos on the Blue Claws in Twitter at this point where I'm just like, after I strike the third guy out, I'm just like screaming at the sky, whatever. But I'm a pitcher that likes to win. The college baseball team that I played for, we weren't a winning organization. And my freshman year, I hated it. And then I learned to adjust to that style of play. It's like, hey, we're just trying to have a good season. It's not, we wanted to win baseball games, but having a good season was successful for us. And that's not a knock at the program. That's just unfortunately how the history of the program's been. But when I got back into a organization that wants to win, and with the Phillies, they all they were about is let's win baseball games. Let's win baseball games. It kind of ignited that fire a little bit back under me, and I that's what I'd tell a Rays fan is you've got a guy that you can put him in any situation, and even if he has a bad game, he's still going to give you everything you got.
So are you a fan of showing emotion on the field, not just pitchers wise, but are you okay with the guys in the batter's box doing it as well?
I think as long as you're not disrespecting the other player, I think it's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem if a guy hits a 485-foot nuke off of me and it's a 1-1 ball game in the bottom of the 8th inning. Like, you know what? By all means, I don't have a problem with that. Right. Because if I strike you out in the bottom of the 9th inning and we win the game to go to the, whatever the pennant, whatever league I'm in at that point, I'm going to show emotion. I'm going to scream. I'm going to do what I can to get myself, get the energy out, I guess. I do have an issue with when guys, pitchers or hitters, whether it's a bat flip or whatever, if you, strike somebody out and then you stare them down back into the dugout, I don't see what the benefit of that is, because the second you do that and then give up a bomb to the next guy, you're just starting issues, right? same thing with a hitter. It's a home run and he just looks at you while they're running the bases, or he just walks around the bases like, you've had your time. Let's get around the bases kind of thing, because unfortunately your next guy's getting one in the ribs, and that could cause either a fight between the teams, or it could cause an injury for your teammate, whatever it may be. Like, I just don't think there's a place for disrespect necessarily.
I'm with you. I agree that there definitely should be more like energy, enthusiasm, like on the field as well. But I get you. There's a time and a place. I agree with that. I think they did an incredible job. Did you watch the WBC? What was that now? 2 years ago?
I watched a little bit of it. Yeah, in the 2023. Yeah, I watched a little bit of it.
They did it. I mean, I know they were representing the countries and everything, but the amount of I don't know, the amount of celebrations that were going on the mound, in the batter's box, I was kind of like, all right, like they're all into this. It just makes you feel like they care more. I don't know. It just does. But Jamie, I have some random questions here that I want to get to, but if you had some more baseball stuff, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think mine's going to be as random as yours are going to be, but I guess my last one would be, if you could pick one baseball memory from your career, whether it's in college or the minors, which one stands out to you the most looking back?
So it's my birthday of 2021 in minor league baseball. I came in to close a baseball game. I was my 23rd birthday, and I come in against the Asheville Tourists, and I struck out the side for like the first time ever in my career. 3 batters, 3 up, 3 down. And I think that's the video that the Blue Claws have put on their Twitter before the emotional part. But I think all the things culminating together, my family was able to make it up for that game. My now wife, fiance at the time, was there, and like I said, birthday plus something that I don't think I've ever struck out the side. I've struck a lot of guys out, but typically not 3 in a row. So that's probably the biggest memory I can think of.
All right, Blake, it's time. It's that part of the show. I'm gonna ask you some. They're just kind of like, I call them random just because they're not related at all, and they're just all over the board. So I just have to prep you before, but it's not any hard questions. But
no pressure at all.
My first random question: what is a guilty pleasure of Blake Brown?
A guilty pleasure. To be honest, I don't know if I really have any. I mean, well, okay, I love sweets. I guess we can. That'll be my guilty pleasure. I love sweets, any type of candy. Unfortunately, it's a bad habit sometimes. My wife's mom actually usually has a lot of candy at their house in this off season when we were living with them. Anytime I'd get up, I'd grab a little, like a Heath bar about this big, and I'd grab it and eat it, and then I'd go sit down, and it just became a bad cycle.
The in-law spoiling you.
Is Heath bar your go-to?
Do what?
Is Heath bar your go-to when it comes to candy, if you had to pick one?
Yeah, Heath and Score bars are my favorite candy bars for sure.
So you're chocolate over sour.
Yeah, I do like sour. I like the Airhead Extreme stuff, but if I had to choose, I'm going with the chocolate bar.
Fair. That's on our last interview we had, it was soda. That was the first time I'd gotten soda. So this is the first time I've gotten candy. Like, it's I don't know. My fiance would be hers as well, because she always wants something. Like, you eat dinner, and then, like, I don't know if you deal with it at all with your wife, but we'll eat dinner like we did last night, and she was just like, all right, I want something sweet now. And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like, we just had like a huge dinner, but she was already thinking about like chocolate or like ice cream or something. I'm like, holy cow. Like,
yeah, I totally understand that.
Well, it's fair. To each their own. I'm a big candy guy too. I think I'm a sour guy though. But it is what it is. I still love some chocolate. Second one here. You know what? I'm just going to get onto it because I have a few. Actually, you know what? I'm going to ask this one before I get into the important one. But you are a North Carolina born and raised. Did you grow up?
I was born in Greenville, South Carolina, but moved to North Carolina when I was 2 months old. So yeah. Okay.
So your whole life, you've pretty much been in North Carolina, and you went to college there. Yeah. We had another guy on that played high school baseball and grew up in North Carolina. is there like a huge rivalry with barbecue there?
Yes. So Eastern North Carolina and Western North Carolina barbecue are a little different, but it's the sauces that they use. I'm trying to remember. I think Eastern North Carolina is more of a mustard based and Western is more of a vinegar based. But if I've got that wrong, someone back home is going to crucify me. But yeah, there's definitely a big rivalry because if you go to Raleigh, their barbecue is very different than, say, somewhere in the sticks of Western North Carolina. Tastes very different. I'm partial to Western North Carolina barbecue myself, but that's also where I grew up. So
that was going to be my question, was like, which side are you on? Because we had a pitcher this offseason that he grew up in Western North, out in the sticks, I guess. And he went to Western Carolina University and he was like, oh, it's a big thing. And you're on one side or the other, you're on both. So fair. Okay. You're a man of the South, that means, which I think your answer to this question is going to be where I need it to be. So there is a right answer, but it's okay if you don't get it. So you are hungry and you want some lunch, but you want fried chicken. You want fast food fried chicken. Has to have a drive-through.
Okay.
Every single option is available. So every single place that you've ever been to is all there. Where are you driving your car?
I mean, I know my answer off the top of my head, but there's different types of fried chicken for sure. So you've got like in North Carolina, you've got like Cajun, Louisiana style with like Bojangles and Popeyes. And then you've got like actual Southern fried chicken at KFC. Now, if I'm just picking any fried chicken place, I'm going to Chick-fil-A. Like for sure. I'm going to Chick-fil-A. However, if I had to pick like Southern fried chicken, I mean, probably KFC. That's the only place I can think of.
Wow. All right. Zaxby's was the correct answer, but it's
See,
it's okay.
I won't lie to you. I had never had Cane's before I came to Florida, and then there was a Cane's right next to our apartment in Clearwater. And I had Cane's for the first time. I was like, wow, this is better than Zaxby's. I hated it because I loved Zaxby's so much, but I'm a Cane's guy.
Yeah. Blake, this
crushing me.
Where we agree on that one. Sorry.
Crushing me, man. It's that's a question I've asked every single guest that's come on, and every episode is a new guest. So I've had 54 guys on. I've gotten Zaxby's 3 times. So it's the batting average is pretty low right now, but also they don't even have it up north, which kind of sucks. But
yeah. I
grew up in the St. Louis area, so they do have a few in Missouri. So that's how I got it. But man, they don't have anything up here, but they're starting to sprout some Canes up here. So it's good. Okay. My next question here, it's going to be about your college. So I think we all have, and Jamie included, because unfortunately he's a KU guy, but we're not going to talk about that because we don't like Kansas. Right. But being a Missouri guy, we don't like Kansas. But we all have those athletes, and when we went to school, that kind of represent the era when we were there. So like, I'm not sure on you, Jamie, but I'm sure it's probably a KU basketball player at some point because you guys are dominant in basketball. For Mizzou, we're not good at any sport, so I had Drew Lock to cling on to, and that was it. So that's my guy when I was there. Was there UNC Asheville gets in the tournament every so often in basketball? I know that. Right. Was there any athlete there, non-baseball related, that like during your time you were just like, that's our guy, that's UNC Asheville's guy?
So if I remember correctly, my senior year, he's now been named to every All-American thing you can think of. Drew Pember, he's a basketball player at UNC Asheville, and he's incredibly good. That would have to be my answer. I'm trying to remember if his freshman year was my senior year or not, but he would be the face of UNC Asheville if you had to put a player to it right now.
Fair. Yeah. It's always curious, like, especially for the schools that like UNC Asheville, it's not obviously not like University of North Carolina. That's like, Michael Jordan freaking played there. But I'm always curious about like who people like gravitate towards, because mine's just a random quarterback that we had that's a career backup in the NFL, but that's my guy. Like,
Yeah.
I would run through a wall for Drew Lock, and he can just sit on the bench for the rest of his NFL career, and I still think he's the greatest player of all time. So I don't know.
I mean, we've had a few career guys that came through there. Ty Wigington is probably the biggest baseball name that came through UNC Asheville, and then current. Well, he's not in the big leagues anymore. What was his name? I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it. But we had a reliever that was with the Oakland Athletics for a few years. He graduated in 2014 from UNC Asheville. But I don't think we've had any big time athletes aside from Wigington that I can think off the top of my head.
All right, I have a good trivia question for you if you're ever at an alumni event or anything, but UNC Asheville, holy cow, there is a guy that played for UNC Asheville that is the tallest player in the history of college basketball.
I remember looking this up. I can't tell you his name, but I remember looking this up when I was in college because I saw it.
Guy was 7'9".
He was like late 90s, right?
Yeah, Kenny George is his name.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, trivia question. If you ever that's ever come up, you heard it here first. But all right, Jamie, I don't have any more random ones. We're gonna empty the bench here. Blake's given us 35 minutes of his time, so we appreciate that one. But I have one final one. If you have anything left to empty the bench with.
I'm going to try to think of like a random one on that level this whole entire time. This one isn't as random, but other than baseball, what's your favorite sport to watch or play?
So to watch, I'm not a really big sports watcher. I'm a big South Carolina fan, so I'll watch their basketball and their football whenever it comes on. But aside from that, I'd have to say college basketball. I mean, in the Olympics, I love watching like the gymnastics, the male gymnastics, and all of that because they're incredible athletes. It's actually insane to watch what they can do, and that's always interesting. Golf. That's my answer. Golf. Golf. And now that I'm thinking about it, usually I try to watch at least 2 or 3 of the majors each year. I'm not always religiously going to watch them, but I try to watch them.
Yeah. You'll have plenty of places in Florida. I've told Andrew this. I'm a god-awful golfer, and I belong on a mini putt course, not an actual golf course. But I have been to Florida a couple of times, and when I'm not getting yelled at by grandmas behind me, there's a couple good courses there.
Yeah, I actually haven't been able to play golf too much down here because I didn't have my clubs whenever I was able to, and now with the arm injury, it's kind of just like, hey, let's take it slow, and then once you get healthy, we can put you back out there. But I have heard there's some really good courses down here.
All right, so I did have one last random question that I knew I was going to ask you, and I don't know how it slipped my mind, but you are pretty recently married.
Yes.
So congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
I am currently engaged, and I'm getting married in 9 months now, October of this year. So it's coming up. So I understand what the wedding planning process is like, and it is something, to be honest. So I want to know from you, what was, not going to say the worst part, but what was the most stressful part of your wedding planning process?
Making sure I show up on time. So luckily my wife was really, really good at the planning part. So granted, if I would have said like, hey, why don't we do this? She probably would have been like, no, it's got to be perfect. And she spent months and months and months on every little part of the wedding. So she did a great job with that, but I didn't have to do all that much when it came to the planning, aside from, maybe helping her decide on colors of flowers or whatever, something like stuff like that. But she got most of the vendors, and her and the wedding planner put it together, and it was great. But like I said, showing up on time.
I'll tell you what, man, the wives are the superheroes, because I proposed to her in May of last year. She already had it like all planned out in June. Like, it was insane. I was like, she put on a cape and she went nuts. I was like, what can I do? Like, is there anything you want me to do? Nope. She wants it. And I didn't even argue. I was like, if you want it that way, it's going to be that way. So The wives are the real MVPs right here. That's all you got to know, Jamie. Whenever that comes for you, it's, just nod your head yes and say I'll be there.
I have 2 sisters, so I know the drill.
There you go. All right, I got one last question for you. So we'll end it on this. So 2024 report date, I feel for pitchers is like 3 weeks. It's like 3 weeks away.
Sometime in I think it's like February 21st or 22nd.
All right, so about a month. We're getting there. You already are down at the complex, I think. So I know you don't know. You obviously don't have like a date that you can start throwing. Well, maybe you do. I don't know, but I'm sure that's other talks. But so you just don't know when you're going to be fully ready to go yet. But if you had it your way and you were cleared if you have a target date and you hit that date of when you want to start going full go, what is on, I guess, the bucket list for 24 for you in your baseball playing?
So I'd say, I mean, we can look at it from a numbers point, but I think my bucket list would be to do better than 2021. I think that's the best thing I can say. Unfortunately, baseball is a very erratic sport and doesn't always go the way you plan. But if I can have a better season than I had in 2021 after coming off of injury, or a similar season, I'll be extremely happy. I think pretty highly of myself as a pitcher. I think if everything falls in the right place in the right place at the right time, I think I have a chance to fulfill a dream of mine. So, I mean, and that would be also on the bucket list is getting a chance to debut and see what it's like in the major leagues. Obviously that comes down to performance. And like I said, if I can have a better season than I had in 21, I'll be happy. And I think everything else will fall into place.
Well, I'm hoping to see your name up in Durham at some point. Hopefully once you're clear. And is that close to home for you?
It's about 2.5, 3 hours. Yeah. Very close.
I'm sure you'll have some family there, when that time comes, but Blake, we appreciate all the time, man. It's been a good chat with the guy that, it hasn't been on the mound for 2 years. So it's good to just hear from you and hear your side of things and where things are headed. So we appreciate all the time you gave us.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for bringing me on. I love these interviews. I love talking to people, telling my story and answering all your random questions. It's always fun. So I appreciate you guys bringing me on.